myself. So I drove out to Jersey and had the Float Life DHM bearings installed on my XR. So let's talk about those. As my XR passed 1,000 miles, it seemed like a good idea to go ahead and get the bearings changed. Did I need it? Probably not. But then again, I also did not need to try all those tires on the Pint, and yet, here we are. By the way, if you are not subscribed, please do so, because every time someone subscribes to this channel, you help prevent another nosedive. So the bearings that I bought are the Float Life DH Motoring Collaboration ceramic bearings for the Onewheel. They fit both the XR and the Pint and the Plus. Not the V1, but who cares about the V1? And when you take a look at them, for about $100 for a set, meaning a pair, it's actually not that bad a price. If you want a set of premium SKF bearings, which are steel bearings, but still, those will probably run you anywhere from $250 to $300 a pair. The real reason that I bought them was because the Float Life made a very pretty video, and I am a sucker for good marketing and flashy things. Now, I was almost dumb enough to try to install these myself, but somehow better judgment got the best of me, and so I went on out and had a professional do it for me. Now, normally I'm all for breaking my own stuff. If I'm gonna experiment, it's gonna be on my own stuff, but the XR, this XR was the very first Onewheel I ever got. And so there's a little bit of sentimental value to it, and I didn't wanna just tear it apart and risk destroying it and then being at the whim of future motion. That probably would not be the most ideal situation for a board that I've kept working for the last year and a half. By the way, this is not really a plug for One Stop Board Shop, although I was very impressed with Brian's skill, his expertise, and even more impressed with him as just a casual conversationalist. He's personable, and that's really important if you're having someone work on something that means something to you. I had a good time, job was done well, and I've got nothing but good things to say about One Stop Board Shop. And so, the Float Life bearings by DH Motoring. Now, they have this really nice little lasering on the outside, which is very, very attractive. But once they're installed, you don't see anything except the seal around the outside that goes around the axle. So, how are they? Pretty good. I have to say, it is not a night and day difference because I suppose my bearings were not damaged significantly in any way, although they were quite dirty and you could see some corrosion getting past the shielding in towards the inner race. Now, in an effort to be as realistic as possible, can I notice the difference between the stock bearings and the Float Life DHM bearings? Yes, very much so. Like I said, it's not a night and day difference, however, the difference is noticeable. Is it smoother? Yes. It's very hard to describe. A lot of these things aren't exactly quantifiable, but it feels more liquidy. The response is slightly quicker. Feels like it doesn't drag as much on accelerating and decelerating. A lot of the motor noise is much quieter, especially if you brake very hard and you get that high-pitched whine of the motor winding down. That whine is much quieter. And it seems that I have slight bump in range, which would make sense because the stock bearings are kind of gunked up and a little bit resistive to turning. The Float Life bearings, the DHM bearings, being a bit smoother, not mounted to something, then being inside the motor, providing less resistance on the motor, does seem to improve its response as well as its range. Is it worth $100 for a set of these? If your bearings are really badly damaged and need to be replaced anyway, yes, absolutely. For a set of ceramics, I'd say that that's a decently reasonable price. Burris bearings are a little bit cheaper. I cannot speak between the two because aside from the stock, these are the only ones that I've tried. However, when you look at what's out there on the low end and the high end of the spectrum, if you're getting a set of $25 random no-name bearings, they might be amazing. I don't particularly trust it. Or if you want to go the full $250, $300 for a set of SKFs, I'm sure those are amazing. These work very well. I am very happy that I have them. They do make a board that means quite a lot to me feel very much noticeably better than it did before. Should you buy them? If they're ever in stock, yes, you should. They have noticeably improved the quality of the ride of this board. The acceleration's a bit quicker, the braking is a little bit smoother, the overall experience of riding it is a little bit more fluid, and I would say smoother. Definitely a decent thing to do. And so, if you've got $100 rattling around and you need a new set of bearings anyway, I do recommend you give those a try. Again, if they ever go back in stock. As far as installing them, that's entirely up to you. I do know that the Float Shop does bearing swaps if you're in that area or on the West Coast. I'm in New York, and so sending my board across the country was not a great idea. If you're on the East Coast, I do recommend One Stop Board Shop, especially if you're in the tri-state area. Driving out to New Jersey is a bit of a task, especially if you're coming from the boroughs, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world. And again, for the way that Brian treated my board and the way it works now, I'm very, very much happy I made that trip. So, big thank you to Brian for having me out and for being so cool. Huge thank you to the Float Life for, I guess, not really making these bearings, but commissioning these bearings. Is that the right word? Thank you for watching. I do appreciate your viewership very, very much. I will try to put a bit more content out this week, more so than I have been. And remember, regardless of what bearings you have in your Onewheel, the real trick is to not fall.